What is up? It's the Figure Hunter, and today we're going to talk about a midpoint review for the Amazfit Balance 2 as well as the Amazfit Helio strap. So part of the reason I'm doing a midpoint review is because I want to get some thoughts out, but I am not ready to give all the thoughts out because it takes time to build training load over time. It takes time to observe and perceive if you're getting value from something, especially when you compare it against Garmin or against Whoop, when it comes to the readiness and it comes to the recommendations, when it comes to the wellness things, it has to have a volume of backdrop to be able to give proper wellness and proper training analytics. So I wanted to at least give you some initial thoughts. First, when it comes to the form factor and the daily use of the devices, and then second, when it comes to what I like and what I know I don't like, when it comes to the overall evaluation of different components with life, as well as the recommendations with things from each of the devices separately. So we're going to look at it in form factor first. So when I look at the Balance 2 as it compares to, let's just say, a Garmin, I really feel like the form factor is fantastic. I feel like it is a really nice watch. It is a really sort of slender feeling watch. I don't really notice it on my wrist very much, and I do like the fact that it is a broad size. I feel like it is, it's got it going on. It's definitely got it going on in a lot of different ways. The size, the factor, the screen itself is excellent. The screen is big and bold and beautiful, and it really does make a difference. The battery life has been pretty good at about 6.5 days. This is with always on display at about 50%. I even like the little icons that you get. So actually liking the pop-up notifications on this Amazfit Balance 2 versus what I get on my Garmin. I think it looks sharper, it looks prettier, the icons are just better, and overall everything does work. I do still have that same problem where sometimes if I haven't used the watch in a while and I don't do a wrist raise, the tap won't actually work. One thing that's awesome about these watch faces is that you can just tap on a certain area of the watch face and it takes you right to there. I think that is fantastic. It just works kind of as it should. And but at the same time, you don't necessarily expect it with a lower cost watch. You don't expect it to just jump into all these different areas just on the touching of the area itself. So compared to the Garmin, I think it's got an equivalent experience with how it sort of functions and what I expect. Oh, I turned the touchscreen off on this because I just don't like it. But overall, it's got not quite the depth, but overall great experience like you would expect on an even higher end watch and the cost there. Now, when it comes to the Helio strap, I like the form factor. If you were to compare it to a Whoop, the form factor is similar. This is the Whoop MG 5.0. Form factor is similar. The comfort level is similar. The weight is super light. It feels really, really, you don't feel anything on it. So the form factor is great. The fact that it uses 22 millimeter quick release is great. I got some other bands because I'm going to put it on the bicep because I've done a lot of the heart rate testing. So really good form factor. The only thing I would say is that this strap is terrible. The Velcro on the strap is terrible, and it's too short. So like if you open it all the way up, try to get on your wrist. I have a 176 millimeter wrist. I don't know how my hands compare to other things, but overall, it's just, I have to like pop it out and then like re-slide it through there in order to get it on my wrist. So that's the form factor for both of these. I feel like they are well designed, well done, and good in the overall form factor other than things I mentioned. Oh, and the battery life for the Helio strap is coming in about 10.5 days. So that's really pretty great, and knocking off the ball there. Okay, so what do I like about comes to the app and the functional experience from the Balance 2 first? I do like the app. I do feel like it has a relatively simple but really worthwhile simplicity, very similar to like what Whoop's done with the overview, the readiness, the sleep, and the exertion. I like the sort of the layout of the big numbers up at the top. I like these little daily readiness insights. They come up on all the different functions and they're somewhat helpful. The heart health, I find that to be really useful because it just gives you sort of a summary, and if you want to jump into any one of those fields, that's what you want. You want to see like where last night's metrics compared to previous metrics. So I like that. I like that you can go into all these core metrics. You can sort of see physical recovery, mental recovery. We'll talk about some of the specifics there, but you can see a spectrum of different things When it comes to sleep, I like just the overall, it usually gives you an insight and you have the sleep duration. I like that it's got nap tracking, that it has caught naps and gives you some basics there. And then on the exertion, one of the things, getting to some more of the meaty stuff, I do like that on the workout analysis. So I feel like the workout analysis, when you at the end of a workout, it is relatively good, and the training effect is relatively good. And I will say I like the heart rate accuracy on both these devices so far. I'm going to have to do a whole review on the heart rate accuracy, but I feel like the heart rate accuracy has been great when wearing it on the wrist. Really impressive there, all things considered, and we'll talk about that in another video. But the training effect, the fact that it's given me a training effect relative to what I would get on the Garmin on the aerobic training effect side, that's actually worthwhile. So here's the training effect, 2.3. This is just a low cardio day, 2.6. And then if you go to a more strenuous workout, well, I don't want to do that now. Go to a more strenuous workout, you can see much bigger training load as well as a higher exertion load. Now, it gave me an aerobic training effect that is just, I would say, is too high relative to what it really should have been if we look at the Garmin. So here you got 3.1 on the aerobic versus 3.3, so that's worthwhile. I'm still testing and will need to test longer. This part of this whole thing is in the calories. The calories on the workouts have been very similar with Garmin. I feel like that's useful because it's good to know like calorie burn for tracking your overall health. I still am working to see how the training load looks over time as well as the recovery time. Now that it has to get more familiar with me and how much load I carry to be able to give evaluation of training load, as well as when you go into the exertion tab to see these metrics for fatigue level, which is your short-term training load as well as the long-term training load, that fitness level. Okay, now what do I not like? The naps timing won't be accurate enough. There's two major things. One is that BioCharge was released and then pulled back. So the BioCharge, which is like Garmin's body battery, is not on the Balance 2. And that's a big component because of the second thing. And I find the readiness tab, which is a singular leg of 3 legs in which they stand, is not worthwhile at all. Some of the components they go into a lot of really good readiness metrics. Like those are helpful, those are interesting, those are great. But when it comes to readiness tab, it's like, it's just not worthwhile. So look at this readiness from the last week. This is just my readiness scores. I woke up, 80s all around. There were days when I had like super grueling workouts. There were days when I was up later. There was days when I had more food. I was fasting, I was not fasting, and everything is just rosy and sunny. Maybe it's going to give me a 75 at some point, but I'm going to have to see if this continues to stay this unuseful. So if they don't add BioCharge back to this in full form, and we'll talk about the BioCharge when we look at the Helio strap portion of this video next, then it's not offering a real wellness evaluation, not real wellness worthless. But it's also important to know is that readiness as a functional leg of the 3-legged stool is not good. It's not worthwhile. It doesn't help. So those are the things I'm still testing. So really got to continue to see how the workout evaluations, how the wellness evaluations continue to give value or don't give value. Okay, so what do I think when it comes to the Helio strap? And this is where it's really worthwhile to listen, really worthwhile to look at the functional things. I like all the same things that I talked about before. I like the overall layout. I like the health insights that pop up in different subsections. I like the heart health, same metrics are going to come in there. I like the core metrics, availability right here. You can dive into a little chart if you want to dive into a chart. You can see, a whole bunch of different aspects just right on the core metrics. I like the overall daily bullets. I like the sleep accuracy. Now, it didn't pick up a nap, but in general, it has picked up naps as I've tried to test that aspect of it. It just didn't get it today, which, who knows what to say about that. I like that the exertion on the evaluation of the workout, when you start the workout on the device, the workout itself will have the same relative rigor evaluation when it comes to the training load, when it comes to the anaerobic or aerobic training effect. The anaerobic I do feel like is off on both devices, but it's also not a stat that I really think you might use as much. I have really liked the heart rate accuracy. Again, I just did a review of 2 different high-level strain workouts across the wrist where the accuracy was much better than I expected and better than other devices I've tested in the past. So I like the same workout analytics that you get from the device. So those things are still yet to be sort of evaluated and seen, what kind of value, if it tracks your training load volume and gives good recommendations about how your load is shifting over time, as well as the recovery time from one workout to the next, as well as your acute training load relative to your chronic training load, your fitness level. So those are the things I'm still testing. And the biggest thing that I really like is the BioCharge. The BioCharge is finally a device that has something where it's giving you a failing score. And I'll talk specifically about what I think, but I think it is actually providing real value for your wellness and recovery from morning to morning, as well as the impact of your day to day. Like, how is the impact? So let's go and we compare this more directly to Garmin's body battery. So, you see the daily BioCharge Insight. You can see I went from 54 to 11 at the end of the day. And then if we compare this to Garmin on the body battery, so this is today. So if you were to look today, actually go back to where we were, you would see that it went down. It didn't catch that nap. And so it doesn't think I had the recovery. So that's a concern, because in the previous times it did. It had a bump, it recovered because I took a nap. Here it didn't capture it. So we'll have to watch that. But if you go to a full day on the body battery, full day on body battery, 53 high, 22 low, and you compare that to the full day body battery or BioCharge, it gives you that 54 to 11. So it's coming in somewhat similar between the two. And so that's really helpful. The track or the overall spectrum of the day is relatively somewhat similar. I'm going to have to continue to watch this, but this is at very minimum, it's giving me failing scores on a regular basis, or low scores. Like if you look at where things stand across the time, is a 54, this is the wake up, the 68, 73. So I'm going to have to watch this over a more longer period of days. But I feel like that is valuable. The fact that it doesn't have readiness like it does on the Balance 2, I feel like great. Readiness was not useful, as I shared in that part. So the only thing that I'd say is not good about this is the auto recognition for workouts. So if you go to this exertion tab, it says and I have this on medium, I set it as high sensitivity to auto recognize workouts, and it just was recognizing workouts just all the time. And even if you look at the workouts tab, you can see these auto recognized activities are popping up all over the place, and they don't have accuracy. They're not stuff. I wasn't mowing the yard and had real rigor. So that's what we're gonna have to continue to see, is what if I just left it as it is and didn't track the workouts, which is what I've been doing, is I've been consciously tracking the workouts, which is easy enough. It works. I will say about both these devices, the Bluetooth range is really long, so it's great. I can still see my heart rate all over the house, even if the device is charging or something like that. And the last thing I'll say is, how do I think it compares to the Whoop? How do I think it compares to the Whoop app? It is very similar in a lot of ways. Whoop does have a more static recovery. In the morning, here's your recovery, here's the number, and that's just all it is. So the BioCharge being like the body battery, which is constantly changing throughout the day, depending on workouts, depending on what you did, it adds more value in a dynamic value at least. It is very similar on this heart health, where it gives you the stats. I just think it definitely doesn't compete on the auto recognition of workouts. It doesn't compete on the depth of wellness evaluation. It just doesn't compete. But on the full spectrum, and now Whoop's added this health span, which is progression of aging and things there, just sort of giving you full on guidance. I would say that it's got similarity, but I would say it's more similar to Garmin and the body battery, and not as much of a direct competitor with what Whoop can provide, although it can get some of those metrics similar. So I'm going to really have to look more in depth compared one to the other over time. But in general, it's not providing nearly the depth, in my opinion, as the Whoop, but still is doing some things well and some things that I like. So in summary, what do I think of the Balance 2? I just wanted in the Helio strap, I wanted to get some thoughts out for this midpoint because I feel like there's a lot of people wondering about it. It's obviously at a crazy price tag, low price tag. I feel sort of medium. So what do I think at this midpoint? I feel a little bit like you're getting what you paid for. But it's better than that. So I'm gonna have to really process because I need to see the training load and the training analytics come to full life, as well as the wellness. Give it enough time with each of the devices, the wellness aspects come to life, as if I was just gonna have the Helio strap or just gonna have the Balance 2, not have the Garmin, not have the Whoop. I'm gonna have to see. I would say it's, for the value, it is pretty impressive for what they're giving you. I just don't know if it would replace the Garmin or the Whoop in a comprehensive standpoint. And I really wonder about certain aspects like the readiness with the Balance 2, if it's just not worthwhile and therefore takes it out of the running in a competitive nature. But overall, those are the things I really like and what I'm still looking into, still analyzing, and things that I don't like, so that you have some sort of like more robust response and feelings at this middle point for those of you guys thinking about buying these. It's the Figure Hunter. Thanks so much for watching.